Hello and welcome to episode 4 of For Your Consideration. I am Luke as ever and my co-host is...
Me, Michael, the same bloke as always. You know the score, you don't need us to introduce ourselves.
And if you're listening to this in the first few hours of release, you've still got time to get your April Fool's jokes in, or in the case of Holly, what was it, April, May, June, July, August Fool?
And August Fool.
August Fool. And yes, as March was happy birthday to Michael, this month is my birthday, and I am celebrating a significant milestone of turning 40. And it's my turn to pick. And as we said,
sorry, can I just say happy birthday at this point?
Right. Oh yeah, sorry, thank you very much.
40.
It feels weird.
I remember such a thing. We're
recording this on the 1st of March, so you haven't even had your birthday yet.
No.
And the Harrison Bergeron episode hasn't even come out yet. So it feels weird being wished happy birthday when it's still a few weeks away. As we decided at the end of last time, I picked Red Dwarf, and we initially were going to do 3 episodes, and then we decided that was a bit much. So, and to give Michael the chance to pick his favourite episode as well, we're doing this in 2 parts. This is Red Dwarf Part 1, where we're going to find out my history with Red Dwarf and all that jazz. And then next time we're going to do Michael's picks and find out a bit more about his history with Red Dwarf. But I guess we'll have a quick rundown of what Red Dwarf is for those that don't know what it is. I'm imagining that the Venn diagram of our listeners and people who've who've watched Red Dwarf is pretty much a circle, but you never know.
I would say yes.
I'd say probably yes. So Red Dwarf, sci-fi sitcom. So I guess so far we've done 2 films and a very short-lived TV series. So this is something of a departure because we're doing a TV series that has had quite the lifespan.
God, yes.
So initially ran for 6 series between 88 and 93, at which point its creators had something of a professional divorce, and Rob Grant never worked on it again. It then came back for 2 more series in 97 and 99. This was all on the BBC. And then 10 years after that, it was revived on Dave for a one-off special called Back to Earth. And then there were 3 more series in 2012, 2016 and 2017. And then a one-off movie-length special in 2020, which I have the Blu-ray on my shelf, but it's on my pile of shame. I haven't actually watched The Promised Land.
Did you not watch it live? Did you not watch it?
No, I didn't.
It's great. You will need to watch that before
I will try and watch that. I'll watch that before yours next week. I mean, it's 2020.
Because it fits. It actually interlocks. That's the point.
Yes, 2020. My youngest was almost 3. I mean, I don't think it has any relevance. I mean, I guess it was like really early on in the pandemic. I don't know why I didn't watch it at the time. I think partly because at that point I still hadn't finished watching Series 12. And I have now, over the last year or so, finished watching Series 12. The premise of the show is outlined at the beginning of every episode of the first 2 seasons. So I'm just going to play that here.
This is an SOS distress call from the mining ship Red Dwarf. The crew are dead, killed by a radiation leak. The only survivors were Dave Lister, who was in suspended animation during the disaster, and his pregnant cat, who was safely sealed in the hold. Revived 3 million years later, Lister's only companions are a life form who evolved from his cat and Arnold Rimmer, a hologram simulation of one of the dead crew.
So that's the setup, and then over the course of the series, it changed slightly. At the beginning of Series 6, they lost Red Dwarf, and then were trying to find it for the whole of Series 6 and Series 7. Then they found it again in Series 8, and all the crew were resurrected. And then it's never really explained why the crew go missing again, but you're sort of back to the original setup for Back to the Earth and following in the Dave stuff. And then you also had the introduction of the character of Crichton.
Twice.
As a one-off in Series 2 and then as a regular in Series 3. And he sort of gradually replaces the character of Holly in terms of like function in the script, as it were. So yeah, that is Red Dwarf.
Right. Or you can describe it as it's Alien, but they still cryo sleep, and they are space truckers. And what happens instead is the cat Jonesy evolves, and there's still only one person on board.
And I do believe that some of the bits of set from Alien were used in Red Dwarf at various points.
Really not surprised.
I have a feeling that some of those corridors that you get in the later series of Red Dwarf are actually alien corridors. Yeah. Please write in and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's true. Yeah. So I've picked a couple of episodes from that run of, well, quite a lot of episodes now.
78.
Is that how many it is?
I think there is.
I'm looking at a column and I'm like, oh, if I did the sums, I guess there were what 36 plus. So yes, 50 in the original BBC run, and then there have been 24 more. Yes, so that makes 74, I think. Anyway, it's in the 70s.
It's a memory from Wikipedia. It's
yes.
The memory cheats, as we all know.
Yes.
Yeah. I had to really control myself with.
Oh no, I can't count. You're right. It is 7. There's 52. There we go. 52 on the BBC and 24 on Dave. That does make 76. So I might cut this bit because that's a lot of waffle about.
To be fair, it's what they're here for. It's just
listening to us waffle on.
Well,
yes.
Yeah, because they've probably watched Red Dwarf. Now, a lot of people have got a whole love-hate relationship with it. Because I had a chat with my wife and she was like, oh, what are you doing next? And I explained we were doing the Red Dwarfs, but we were splitting it over the two shows.
Right.
And I said, but to be fair, we could just review every single Red Dwarf ever and have a chat about it afterwards, just like we did with UFO. And then I realised 78 at one a month would take us well into our, well, forget it. We'd be very elderly people.
Yes. I mean, not as long as if we did Babylon 5, which people have asked us to do.
To be fair, I'd consider it. But anyway, moving on.
Yes.
What I need to say is that I also love Red Dwarf, but my wife just went, yeah, it was great. And then Kachansky arrived. And it was like, okay then. And she just stopped watching it on that season where...
Yeah.
Because I think that's around the time Chris Barry goes, I'm off now. And he sort of vanishes for a bit as well.
Well, so that was series 7, which was there was a sort of gap of 3 or 4 years, and that was after, as I say, the professional divorce between Grant and Naylor.
Yeah, which I know nothing about because, like bands, I never know the politics of what's going on. I never know why bands split up. I never know people's names. I just like the music.
So the documentary on, I'm guessing it's the documentary on series 7.
Right.
All of the main cast say, we don't know what happened.
Right. Okay.
I am not aware, again, if people who are more kind of in-depth on the behind the scenes, I am not aware that either of them have ever been on record to say why. All we know is that they had a falling out for some reason. They were contracted to write the third Red Dwarf book, and because they fell out, they both wrote the third Red Dwarf book. So there ends up being 4 Red Dwarf books.
Right, I was going to say, because I've got a signed copy of the first Red Dwarf book signed by both of them.
Yes.
And I think the Spitting Image book as well, because this point they said we didn't come out well from that one. I hadn't read the book. I just knew there was a picture of them both inside and I got it signed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's so I've met them, had an autograph or two, and that's it, from as far as I know from them. But people just grow apart.
Yeah.
But Red Dwarf's been part of my life since I was 16. And
so how old were you in 1988?
I was 16.
You were 16, okay. So you watched it from the start?
Yeah, episode 1. Straight off. Doctor Who was still on TV.
Yes, it was just about, yeah.
Right, so it's 1988. It's September, this one. And
so that's series 2 is this September 1988.
Well, hang on. The one you wanted me to talk, like you've got 2 that you want to discuss today.
Oh yeah. In terms of the ones I'm talking about, yeah.
No,
but I'm asking whether
down,
you did you watch the end?
I've watched every single episode of Red Dwarf the night it's been broadcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Gigantic fan. It runs through everything. It's in a roundabout way responsible for me being a podcaster. There's lots of stuff that it affects that I'll talk about next time.
Okay.
But it goes through me possibly more than Doctor Who did at the time.
Okay.
Because it got me through the wilderness years.
Yeah.
It was where I love. I'm comedy. I'm sci-fi, and it was a lot more working. There's only two real sci-fi comedies, and that's your Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and this one.
Yeah.
They're the BBC comedies, and they are very different creatures.
Yeah.
But this one's always been there. It's been a way I found like my tribe and stuff like that. So Red Dwarf's important to me, but I'll discuss that all next time. How did you come across it? Because famously you discovered Doctor Who through books. So given that you are 12 years younger than me.
Yes, so I was 3.5 when Series 1 was broadcast.
Oh, I need a drink.
So by the time that initial run of 6 series was done, I was only 9. And was just about to watch Dimensions in Time and properly kind of get into Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So I was aware of Red Dwarf. It was the kind of thing that my parents would not have enjoyed or approved of. So they would.
There's a lot to unpack there. I want to know more about that in a minute.
I mean, a lot of the humour is sexual. And my parents were kind of sticklers for kind of ratings and stuff, and most of Red Dwarf is rated 12, so it wouldn't have been. And it was, I guess, was it on after The Watershed?
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that I would have watched or been able to watch when it was first on because I was 9, and then obviously it was 13, and then I was 15. I do remember a show called How Do They Do That? Do you remember that?
Yes, and towards the end of the run of How Do They Do That, the answer to How Do They Do That was, we use a computer. Every single thing was, we use a computer, and then the programme stopped being made. But earlier on, they were doing How Do They Do That, and they showed you stuff like, how do they do the effects? I think, did they do scutters?
They did. The one that I'm aware of, and I think it's on the DVD for Series 7, is because Series 7 was the transition between model effects and CGI.
It was. And
so they did how do they do that on the World War II plane that Ace Rimmer jumps out of with the crocodile?
Okay.
And so I distinctly remember that. So I was aware of that. And I must have seen the odd episode in passing because they always seem to repeat Camille. Because I definitely saw Camille at some point. I remember the blob very clearly. So I'd seen that, and I'd probably seen little bits and bobs. But what really got me into Red Dwarf was a friend at church who was called Hugh. He and his wife Judith used to have Red Dwarf parties.
Nice.
And I guess he'd been a fan from the off. He was probably about 10 years younger than my parents, so he's sort of early 60s now, I guess. And in the case of series 1 to 6. They'd watch a whole series in an evening. With series 7 and 8, because they were 8 episodes, they were like, that's a bit long, we'll split it in half. So the one that I went to, and this would have been when I was about 17, 18, so a couple of years after series 8 had been on, and I guess we must have watched it on VHS because the DVDs weren't out then. And he basically had his house set up, so there was like a screen in the kitchen, and he had 2 front rooms essentially, so there was a screen in each of the front rooms, and then there was a screen in the back garden, right? So this was like lots of people. There were probably like 40 people in the house. And what he would do is beforehand...
I don't know 40 people.
Well, no, I mean, like I say, this was like a church network, right? So these were other people from my church who, unlike my parents, didn't disapprove of Red Dwarf. Anyway, so beforehand, he'd watch through the episodes beforehand, and he would note down, with time code, any time a piece of food was mentioned. And there's lots of food. There's lots of food that gets mentioned in Red Dwarf.
There is. There's even on Amazon available the Red Dwarf cookbook.
Well, there you go. Exactly.
Right. It's probably written by the same guy.
So he'd send an email out and he would say, "Are you coming?" And anybody who came, unless it was your first time, and this was my first and only time because I then went off to uni, had to bring something off the list. Okay.
Okay.
And then you'd arrive at the party, you'd deposit your dish in the kitchen, and then he'd press play, and we would watch, in this case, 4 episodes of Red Dwarf straight. This was the second half of Series 8, so this was Crikey TV, Pete Parts 1 and 2, and then Only the Good. And then he would just, at the requisite moment, bring out the food. So you had, the ones I recall from that are, it's like a cloning experiment gone wrong. that they've tried to cover up. Somebody made some kind of creative chicken dish that looked a bit weird. That's the series that also has horse's head made of marzipan. So there's a lady at church who made a horse's head out of marzipan.
Nice.
Cow Vindaloo, obviously, this is what they get to. So and you just sat and you watched and you laughed, and food would come out at the requisite moments, and you would kind of eat along to Red Dwarf. And then I went off to uni, but that was the same crowd. So if you remember Back to Earth, when Back to Earth was broadcast,
Yeah.
it was broadcast without a laughter track.
Yes.
But I basically watched it at his house with the same crowd of people. So we had a whole house doing the laughter track, essentially.
Oh,
which I
that's
think
nice.
is partly why I enjoy Back to Earth a lot more than its reputation kind of suggests. So that was my proper introduction to Red Dwarf. And then that was kind of the jumping off point for them releasing the DVDs, because they released them sort of like 2 a year from 2002.
Now this is
So
the
I
initial
kind of-
DVD run, not
This is
the ones
initial-
with the changed gags and the changed
Yeah, not the
CGI
sort of the
stuff.
remastered ones.
The
no.
remastered ones, yeah.
So I just kind of got into them, and so I saw a load of those episodes. I basically saw for the first time as a student.
Bought them on
and-
VHS. Yeah. Go
Yeah.
on.
So yeah, so that was it. And I guess I basically took a massive wallet of DVDs with me to Russia. I suspect I took them with me. So obviously I was then very excited when it came back, and I've sort of enjoyed kind of watching it. I applied. I don't know about you, but I applied for tickets to the recordings of Series 10. Didn't get them.
Right.
But what I did get was Robert Llewellyn tweeted, first come, first serve, premiere of Series 10 in some cinema in London. I think it might have been the Prince Charles. I can't remember now. Anyway, yeah, pretty sure it was the Prince Charles. So I followed the link because I happened to see his tweet within the first few minutes of him tweeting.
Yep.
So I got tickets. So a friend and I went down to London, and we basically got to see that first episode of Series 10 the week before it went out on Dave, with, I think, if I remember rightly, Robert Llewellyn and Chris Barry were there, along with Doug Naylor. I'm assuming that Craig Charles was still filming. Oh no, he wouldn't have been in Coronation Street. Was he still in Coronation Street? Danny John Jules was definitely off in the Caribbean filming the latest series of Death in Paradise. So
See, I didn't even know he was in that until a couple of years ago. Like, I just had avoided the series.
Oh, I love
And then
Death in Paradise.
I put one on and went, oh, there
Yeah.
he is. Oh, I'm glad
There he
he's
is.
working.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he did a good 7 or 8 series of that before leaving, I think. So yes, that was fun. And then obviously, and actually, off the back of that, I picked up one of they had all these kind of A1 size boards with the.
Nice.
So I took that home, pinned it on the wall, and I did a one-off episode of the Minute Red Dwarf podcast. When I was still doing Tmudwurp. And then obviously when series 11 and 12 were filmed back to back, I applied again. And I got tickets this time. And I'd applied for the maximum number of tickets, so 4 tickets. Hannah didn't want to come with me. I guess it was the first year we were married. I offered her a ticket, obviously. She didn't want to go. So I immediately was like, well, Hugh and Judith, obviously, I have to invite you because you were the ones that kind of got me into Red Dwarf properly and, big fans. So I messaged them. And they later said it was like a particularly crappy year, and it was the highlight of their year, was basically being able to go and watch an episode of Red Dwarf being filmed. And then Adam from Staggering Stories was the 4th member of the party, because I asked around a few people and he was available, and so we went on an evening to Shepperton, I think it was they were filming at, or was it Pinewood? I can't remember. Wherever they were filming Star Wars at the same time.
I think when I saw it recorded, I think it was Shepperton, but I'm not. My London geography's terrible, and I got taken there by somebody else. And
I thought it was filmed in Manchester when you were watching it. No, you went to London.
No,
Okay.
I went to London, and I'll tell that story next week. But
Okay.
because we looked. This shows you how long ago it was when I did it. I looked over a wall into a workshop because we were being shepherded around a sound studio, And I think we saw some Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtle skulls being made out of fiberglass.
Wow.
But I wasn't tall enough to look in. So I was kind of jumping up to try and get it. And yeah, not good. But I can discuss that all next time. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with the recording, the separate, getting to see them a week early as well. But no, that is great because. So your experience, we're doing this the wrong way around, I know, but your experience of seeing it recorded live, was that?
Yes.
So that was the one.
So that was
because we're supposed to be doing 2 episodes this time.
Yes.
And the second one is the Samsara. That's this one, yeah. Samsara.
That's the one I still recorded live. Yeah. Well, not recorded live. Obviously, it didn't go out live. So yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to kind of compare notes. And as I was watching it this time, I was struck by the fact that it is a semi-sequel to Justice. They actually reference Justice Tech is a line that Crichton uses, which I thought was quite ironic that the 2 episodes that we saw filmed are linked in that way.
Because I saw Justice,
you saw Justice. Do you want me to give you an insight into the process, or should we kind of talk about the episodes first?
Well, let's do that at the same time. So you've chosen 2 this time.
Yes,
you've chosen one from season 1, which
season
is Thanks
2.
to the Memory.
Season
I thought
2.
Thanks to the Memory was season 1.
Season 2.
Hang on. Oh yeah, it is. It's season 2,
season
episode
2.
3.
It's episode 3 of season 2.
Sorry, I've just misread what I'd written.
So here's the thing. I mean, I'd love to hear your answer to this. You can talk more about it next week. But there's generally speaking, the BBC bit gets divided up into 3. Really, you've got people kind of talk about series 1 and 2, where you've got original Holly before Crichton becomes established.
Yeah.
And then you've got 7 and 8, which were the sort of later series, which are quote unquote not as good. And then you've got 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the middle, which are seen as being kind of proper kind of quality. And there's a sort of division amongst fans between are series 1 and 2 best, or are 3, 4, 5, and 6 best. And although I really love lots and lots of bits of series 3 and 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm not nearly as sniffy about 7 and 8, actually, mainly because my introduction to the series was series 8. I really loved the first 2 series.
Well, they are what was pitched, which was Step 2 and Son in Space.
Yeah.
It's really small, really claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And really dingy, like you actually expect space to be I did at the time. And I was like, they're not trying to be Star Trek. They're not trying to be what they are is this. And then there are some fairly high concept stuff.
Yes.
Going on in the first 2 seasons, and they're not. All right, there's a lot of slapstick. There always will be in Dwarf, but there's also a lot of quite clever stuff. That's why one of my choices is also from this. I mean, mine's from season 1. I think. Mine's one. So yeah, we've.
Yes, and
if ever I was going to just shove some Dwarf on, it would be the early stuff because I really like Norman Lovett, and I really like the fact that there's just the 4 of them, and there's almost always a guest star or somebody appearing, but there's a reason for that, and it goes on. But then it starts becoming a bit more. I think I remember reacting badly for no reason when season 3 happened and they were in new quarters, and it was right. I mean, the logic behind it was completely right. That why bother to live in the crappy quarters if you've got the whole ship to investigate? Move somewhere else. But they're still going to be in like bunk beds because there's only 2 of them, and they have to share space. Why they wouldn't have like adjoining rooms, like a sort of ant and deck thing going on? But it keeps the comedy straight and normal. But you've got the bunk bed thing going on. So that still works. That they did the upgrade, but everything's a lot brighter. And there's money on the screen.
Yes.
And you know me, and I think like you, we always have preferred models, like physical, actual props, and well, you're an Anderson fan, for God's sake. You're gonna like, your nicely built
Well, this-
things. I
this is
loved
the-
the hollowed out asteroid. I loved how much thought they'd gone into the world building, and it was there on the screen in front of you. It was lovely.
I mean, that's partly what I like about some of the new stuff is that there's a mixture of models again and CGI.
Yes.
But yeah, like you say, I'm an Anderson fan. Peter Ragg, I believe, who worked on Red Dwarf, had worked for Anderson. So, and I think that's what I like about it is it's genuinely funny, right? It doesn't skimp on the com of the sitcom, right? But the sit of the sitcom is properly sci-fi, and like you say, like from episode 2, Future Echoes, they're playing with some proper actual science kind of
It's
ideas.
really brave that they've gone in. See, episode 2 is Future Echoes. I mean, it's really brave to have gone in that hard.
Yeah,
because that feels like something you'd put in like a 5th episode or something like that. But they go, right, lads, we're approaching the speed of light. We've been accelerating for 3 million years, and we're almost there. And it's
and
like,
then
cool.
you've got the cat stuff, which I will talk more about next time because you've picked a cat-centered episode.
Yes.
But those first 2 series kind of exploring the cat religion, and that sort of gets forgotten about a lot until
for 28 years.
Yeah, later. And I do look forward to watching The Promised Land because I understand that is a cat-focused episode.
Yeah.
And then there was also a cat-focused episode where I think he was going to have to have sex or he would die, I think was the premise in series 7, and it didn't get made. But there is like a storyboarded version on the series 7 DVD if you're interested in checking that one out. So yeah, and it's not that I don't like Hattie Hayridge because she gets some great material, but she gets a lot less great material than Norman Lovett did because Crichton has come in and he takes a lot of their computer who knows stuff role.
And let's face it, he is easier to do, and also they do stuff like it's. They obviously get bored and go, right, we can't have Rimmer not touching stuff anymore.
Yes.
So the light bee comes in.
Yes.
Instead of this hologram cage that's in your episode where it allows you. And the ship can only support one hologram, except when it needs to support two.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like whatever the plot needs is served by the science, and it has to be that way around.
Well,
and at least that's good.
At least they actually write in the hard light thing. Like the reason that he can suddenly touch stuff in series 6 is because they meet Legion and Legion makes him a hard light hologram. So there's actually kind of moments where they write those changes into the plot.
Yeah, but even there's stuff like at the beginning of season 3, there's a big scroll of text that brings you up to date.
But you can only watch that in slow-mo on DVD. I have. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Well,
but it does
I used
explain...
to just pause the video lots of times with the remote, and I remember distinctly writing it down by hand in longhand so that I could get it all. So I got that. So but I mean, Hattie's great. She actually did a voice for my animated film.
Did she?
As far as my degree, she's one of the people who do Secret of Comedy. There was her, Rob Newman, Stephen Fry. There was Ed Edmondson. There's a lot of big names on my final film, which is obviously why I'm such a success as an animator.
And all I got was Denise Robertson, the Agony Aunt. But
fair
I'm not bitter about that. So thanks for the memory. So I picked Thanks for the Memory just because it's a good story. It's very funny, and it's one that I enjoyed. And this is the first time that my wife has joined me in doing quote unquote homework. I said to her, "Are you up for watching it?" And so she actually grew up watching Red Dwarf with her brother. So she must have watched it on repeat, I guess, when she was a sort of teenager. Because her brother's a few years older than her. He's not not quite as old as you, but he obviously got into it. So we watched them together, which was nice. One thing I will say before we go into the nitty gritty of Thanks for the Memory, what struck me in watching a series 2 episode and a series 11 episode back to back, which is something I've never done before. I've always when I've watched Red Dwarf, I've done a rewatch and I've gone from start to finish. there's not anywhere near as much studio laughter on Series 2 as there is on Series 11. You know, those early series, they're not... The people who are in the audience are clearly not fans, because Red Dwarf isn't really a thing yet with those first couple of series. You know, there probably were people who were becoming fans, but actually you can tell that the audience for those shows are people who want to go out and see
tickets.
People who got tickets to see a BBC comedy. You know, and there are places. I mean, to be honest, most of the lines in Samsara get a laugh. You know, because everybody there was a fan, right? And we were just having a whale of a time.
That's it. You're with your tribe. It's like you've gone to a convention.
Exactly.
And they're doing it in front of you.
Exactly. And so we're laughing. And some of the lines, I mean, I would say those first 6 series are better scripted because it's Grant and Naylor working together. Okay. You know. Yeah. As much as I love the later stuff, it's missing Rob Grant, you know. And you get the impression that, like, Naylor was always more of the sci-fi ideas man, and Grant was more of the comedy man. Which is not to say that Doug Naylor can't write comedy, because obviously he's written a lot of Red Dwarf scripts that are funny. But I think Thanks for the Memory is a funnier script. But because I was in the audience watching Samsara, I will always find that absolutely hilarious. Because I can, as I'm watching it, I can remember the whole experience.
Yeah, because of the emotional baggage, the connection that comes with it. That's totally understandable.
I don't have that connection to any other episode in the modern era, and so I'm never going to find any of those as funny. But yeah, Thanks for the Memory. It's a great idea. It's another great idea, you know. Like, and it like Lister and Rimmer are, in many ways, the heart of the show. The relationship between the two of them, the fact that they hate each other in many ways.
Yeah.
And it just struck me watching Thanks for the Memory just how much care Lister actually has for Rimmer in this episode. You know, he genuinely is like, we're going to celebrate Rimmer's death day, and then he's so depressed and drunk that he's told me this embarrassing thing about himself.
He actually says it on the thing. It says, I've given you the best 3 years of my death. Yeah. So they're 3 years in, although it's only season 2.
Exactly, yes. There's a whole bunch of time that's passed. And then Lister, obviously, misguidedly, is like, well, I'm gonna give him this amazing present. You know, Cap's like, he'd probably have expected a tie. And he gets this love affair. And then, obviously, it all goes wrong because, you know, once Rimmer discovers that it wasn't real. But it's a great kind of slice of their relationship.
The whole memory transplant thing. I mean, it's really, you know. All right, okay, it's Joe 90, but it's also very, you know, it's Philip K. Dick. There's a lot of very good sci-fi written with those concepts in mind.
Yes.
And this is just another example. Also, a lot of people kick off saying it's Star Trek had a story with the same storyline. Clue was the episode where the crew wake up and they've got some missing time and they investigate how it's happened. But that was actually, I've looked into it, it was a year and a half, 2 years later that they made that story.
Yes.
So if anyone's going to get done for copyright, that's, you know, it's like, which one was... But it's as a sci-fi concept, it's just, it's a well-known... It's not a trope as such, but we've seen this before and it's done so well.
Yes. I mean, memory wipes are a kind of staple of science fiction. But yeah, the whole... They as the audience, we follow along with their experience. I like the fact that we follow along with the experience of what happened to them, and then we leap forward in time with them, so we don't know what's happened either, and we are then discovering what's happened, and that kind of the whole. Why is the footprints on the moon? Why have they broken their legs? All that kind of stuff. And it's just nice to see those details then slotted into place. You go, oh, that's why that happened. Oh, that's why that happened. That's why. And it's why the episode can then just end with the jigsaw being finished.
Oh my God, I wanted that jigsaw so badly.
I mean, I guess it's a bit like Memento in that regard. Have you seen Memento?
Oh yeah, love Memento.
Where you have like, here's the scene, and then we see the scene before that, and then that ends where and it's that piecing together of like, oh, that's why in the future he was doing that, because we're seeing things backwards. So I like that, and then it's just genuinely funny, like the sandwich stuff. Like,
well, then again, you've got the food party that you were talking about earlier, so that's probably why they wouldn't have chosen that this episode. Although, to be fair, I mean, know someone who has eaten a fried egg chili chutney sandwich.
I know. The point is that I know that over the years, Hugh and Judith did the whole lot, right?
Yeah.
So when they did series 2, somebody will have made triple fried egg and chili
fried
sandwiches.
egg chili chutney sandwiches.
Fried chili chutney sandwiches. Like, they will have done that, you know.
My best friend in the whole world has done that after and he says it does work for a hangover.
Yeah, and they will have made the spanner cake, you know. I love the gag. Oh, Gordon Bennett, if he'd been a guy, what is it? If he'd been a gynecologist, yeah, and then you're kind of left to fill in the blank. You know, so it's a nice slice of. To be honest, I could have probably picked any episode from those first couple of seasons. Yeah. They're all pretty strong ideas, and this one just works particularly well. What did you like about watching it this time?
It was just a nice slice of nostalgia for me as well, because I've not gone out of my way to watch any Dwarf for a long time, and it was just really nice. It brought back a lot of memories from watching it, because at the time I remember just loving it, and the people that I liked it as well, so it was a really nice bonding thing, because I was being all blasé, like, yeah, Doctor Who's on, and let's face it, that's just kind of a sci-fi thing that was on in the background, but I was 17, and I thought I knew better, and I didn't, and it really appealed to me at the time. So it's brought back a lot of sort of memories from youth and things like that. And I just remember, because when Andy died, he gave me, I was left a big pile of his discs in his will, and his Red Dwarf set was in there, but he had the remastered ones. Right. And this episode's got like the Felicity, because I watched it again on iPlayer, and they're the original performances, the original releases, so the effects are the same. Mm-hmm. You know, they're what we saw at the time, but on the discs you've got the different looking dwarf, and they've got rid of the Felicity Kendall gag, which, to be fair, makes sense, and they've replaced it with Marilyn Monroe's bottom, and there's that's that kind of thing. So there was a lot of upgrades done in the 90s, or downgrades, as we so eloquently referred to them. But it was nice to go back to the original source and just experience it and see it for what it is, and also just love it, because it just looked great, and the interaction between everyone, it was brilliant. And you know, do you know the story of the original casting?
Whose original casting?
Well, Lister and Rimmer.
I know that Alfred Molina was in the
Rimmer?
frame to play Lister, I think.
No, that's that's the weird thing. I've heard it the other way around.
Maybe it was. I don't know. I know that he was in the
Alan
frame.
Rickman. Now, which would mean, you know, touch wood, we'd now not have any more Red Dwarf in the future because he'd be dead.
Yeah.
But would he? Can you imagine that? I mean, they could play them in the movie.
I mean, was that? But I mean, Alan Rickman was just about to be in Die Hard.
Well, that's it. But I don't know.
I mean, that is a road differently travelled, isn't it?
It really genuinely.
And I can't.
is.
I mean, I can't imagine either of them playing those parts. Really.
But they're both stunningly good actors, so they could pull off the thing. Anyway, that's beside the point. What we've got is great performances in a great show, and that was it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because we're both sat here going, it was great, we don't have anything to moan about.
No, I mean, as I say, other than the sort of the obvious difference in laughter, there were moments in, and it was partly because Hannah was also staving off a migraine, so she'd taken her migraine medication.
Oh, yeah.
And so she wasn't laughing that much. So I actually asked her, I was like, did you enjoy those? She was like, yeah, I really did. And particularly for Thanks for the Memory, she was sort of half, like, migrained out.
That's not good.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. She recovered, and she was enjoying them. Let's talk about Samsara. So, yeah, have you seen any behind the scenes stuff from the more recent stuff? I think there's a documentary on series 10.
I might have seen the documentary that was on Dave last, which was like a celebration and a history of.
Yeah.
But I think I watched it at the time and I've not seen it since. So we're talking a few years now.
So the setup in the studio for what was recorded on the night, you had the science lab, and next to that, well, there was a sort of gap in between the sets. Next to that was the set for the bunk room. So those were the two main Red Dwarf sets that they clearly built.
Yeah.
For series 10, 11, and 12. And then at the far end, so I was sort of on the left-hand side. So for a lot of the action, I was looking to my right. And we were right on the front row, I think, or the row, either the first or second rows. We were kind of quite low down to the ground. And then at the far end were the bits of set for the Samsara. So the two rooms, so the room that Lister and the cat ended up having their quality time in, and then the drive room that Lister and Rimmer and Crichton did.
Okay,
so
got it.
Anything that you saw without the four main cast in it, so the sort of flashbacks, those were all pre-recorded. So those were just played to us as an audience. And then there was some of the sort of bigger stuff, so all the skeleton stuff, that was all pre-recorded, because the laugh for that relied on the reveal.
Yeah, the camera pullbacks
and you're suddenly you're seeing all the skeletons in sex positions.
Yeah,
so that was
sense.
all pre-recorded, so that that wouldn't be spoiled essentially. And
they were playing Twister. Yeah.
I think they had a Starbug set. There wasn't obviously an interior Starbug scene, but I seem to recall them recording a Starbug scene, either for that episode or another one that they needed to do a Starbug scene for, and that set was sort of tucked around the side. I don't think I'm making that memory up. I
think for me the Starbug was at the far left-hand side of the soundstage.
But I guess there was a lot more Starbug stuff.
Yeah.
So obviously in this you didn't even see them. It was suddenly like, we're on Red Dwarf, now we're on Samsara. There was one shot of Starbug plunging into the ocean, wasn't there? To kind of sell that. And then obviously with all the special effects shots, they just had somebody on the side kind of going, and now you're going to see this special effects shot in the finished thing. So we kind of had this idea that the ship was gradually kind of sinking. And then obviously, yes, it played out in the order that you saw everything else in the episode. Obviously, all the dice rolls were pre-recorded because you had to kind of.
Oh yeah.
You had to.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Oh no! So obviously they were rolling the dice live on the set, but then on the screen they cut to a pre-recorded shot of it landing on a 2 and a 1.
Yeah.
And obviously there was a bit where the dice did fall off the table in the script, but I think there was also a bit where the dice fell off the table unintentionally. Right. There was as with, I'm sure you recall from your own experience, there were lots of retakes.
Yeah.
There were the traditional kind of smeg-ups. I seem to recall the whole Bath falling out of the tree and inventing gravy took quite a number of takes.
Yeah.
And it didn't cease to be funny because it's just, I guess
Danny's comedy timing is definitely underrated because the other two are so well. Everybody's got their A game on this.
Yes.
But because Danny's seen as like the cat and his slinky, and he's got the movement going on as well. Because everyone else has kind of just got older and more slobby, but he hasn't.
No.
And he's just kind of. I'm sure he's wearing the same clothes he was in season 1, and his delivery and timing is so good, but he just makes it look so effortless. Everybody else is putting in a really good performance, and he doesn't even look like he's acting. He's just like that good.
I guess there's a lot in the makeup and the hair.
Yeah.
For him, I suppose for Craig Charles as well with the ponytail. There's a lot there, and obviously Robert Llewellyn has to go through a lot of of prosthetics. So there's a lot of kind of becoming the character.
Yeah.
But you could kind of, when they were introduced at the beginning of the night, you were kind of like, okay, yes, these guys they're doing theatre essentially.
Yeah.
They're being recorded. Obviously, they're doing retakes, but they are doing live performances for us.
I always thought everyone except Danny should be hosting Top Gear, because Chris Barry's got the car background. You've got Robert Llewellyn, who's got the modern car background.
Yeah.
And, and Craig Charles could just be the main host. I know he does the Gadget Show on Channel 5, which is basically Top Gear for people who stay in. Right. But I always thought...
I think he used to do Robot
the
Wars
entire
as well.
crew. Yeah. Oh, Robot Wars. How good was that? Sorry, saw that live as well.
Oh, wow. Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. At an
love
arena.
That.
Oh, my God. The crowd went absolutely mental for Hypnodisc. It was great. Yeah. Right. Sorry. So yeah.
And then I suppose the substance of the episode, the idea of the Karma Drive as a sort of sequel to Justice, and sort of Rimmer kind of gets to voice what the audience is thinking. Like, well, yeah, who gets to decide morality? If you've got
that is a flaw with sometimes with the writing, where Rimmer has to stop being Rimmer for a bit in order to be the voice of reason, and then he has to step back into being Rimmer in order to get the plot going.
Yes.
Because although Rimmer's an idiot, he doesn't always behave like an idiot. He sometimes has to drive the plot forward, but
yes.
But then again, the show did become like the Crichton Show as it developed on, because he was the person who could actually explain stuff to the audience.
Yes.
He was the person who was going, well, let's try this.
Yeah.
And it did deviate considerably from the then where'd all the calculators go kind of character.
Yes.
So
yes. Well, then they even make fun of that in Back to Earth, where they've got the psi scan, and you've got the kind of, when they go into the real world, so to speak, you've got the guy on the TV going, how does the psi scan know what it, and it's like, well, it's read his emails and knows that he needs penis enlargement cream, so they weren't above kind of making fun of their own tropes.
Yeah, well, that's and we love them for it. We do.
Yeah, we do. It's one of these things where what's left unexplained is if they were all doing stuff that was immoral to stay alive, what actually happened for the ship to then kill them all, because they're all found in positions of immorality, so to speak.
Was the ship already on self-destruct?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those ones you just kind of go, okay, let's not think through it too hard.
But the strangling moment's hilarious where, with the dictation.
It's just like, it's that rather than explain, Crichton is like, right, I'm going to use this moment to kind of do a physical demonstration. I feel that he does that at other points in the series, and I can't think of another good example, but I feel that's a character.
Yeah.
It's like within the bounds of his kind of service to humanity, he manages to kind of get, some insults and violence against them.
According to my maths, there's 28 years between these two episodes being done.
Being broadcast, yes.
Might be 27 because I got
No, 28 years between. Yeah, so September 88 and September.
Here's the
2016.
scariness.
Yes.
The first one we're talking about, I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
The second one we're talking about, I was 44. That's a big jump.
Yes. Well, I mean, for me, the first one, I was 4.
Yeah.
And the second one, I was 32.
And yet, it's the same characters, the same cast, performing just as well.
I guess what struck me, possibly because I've more recently seen the newer stuff, was going back to Thanks for the Memory and how young they look. Craig Charles in particular, how young they look in that. I think, like you said, Danny John Jules is the one that seems to have aged the least.
According to Wikipedia, this is important. The Thanks for the Memory episode, right? It's not always Craig in the space costume, because his kid was due to be born and they overran with the recording. and he missed the birth of his child by 20 minutes because he was filming this episode.
Oh no.
And that's on Wikipedia. Whether it's true or not, I just don't know. But I just needed to be. It's an important story for this one, which means his kid now is old.
Yes.
So Red Dwarf,
Wow.
making you feel old for a very long time.
Making you feel old. Yes. Do you think they're going to make any more?
Yes.
Or do you think The Promised Land was it?
No, I do think.
You think they'll make some more?
I reckon they'll make at least one more season, but then I'll always feel that they'll make another season.
Yeah.
Like even
and eventually,
they'll stop when one of the cast is no longer available to do it.
right. Yeah.
I think that's the day they'll give up, because
yeah.
they genuinely look like they're having a nice time.
Mm.
They know that those characters mean the world to us,
Yeah.
and we'll follow them literally to the end of the universe, because there's no other series like it. There is no other sci-fi series with that's had that. Well, there are sci-fi series with more episodes,
Yes.
but they've got the same cast over such a length of time, and they've been such a recurring. But it's like you would never get the original cast of Star Trek to have been in it for more than the 5 years that they were supposed to do. I know it's 3 and a bit, but you know what I mean. But it's
Yeah.
and this is a shed load of time.
Yeah.
And
I guess if you think about, so Star Trek began in '66,
yeah,
and then the final original series movie was 1991.
I suppose that's the closest you're going to get.
So there's a 25-year spread there.
Yeah, all right.
And everybody was still alive in '91, weren't they?
Yeah.
I think was DeForest Kelley the first to die?
Yeah, he was considerably
believe.
older than everyone else, though, wasn't
Yeah. But yes, but obviously with Red Dwarf, it is now a longer span. We are talking 36 years.
he? Yeah.
So yeah, if they make another series, we're kind of well into the 4th decade of Red Dwarf being a thing.
Yeah. I'm going to believe that they do. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But I
know
like
that
to
there
believe they do.
There were some legal issues with Rob Grant that were
Yes.
recently resolved. So
I remember them
both
discussing this on the Staggering Stories podcast.
So it means that both Rob Grant on his own and Doug Naylor can pursue more Red Dwarf projects. So I don't know what that was. I don't know what caused that. But the fact that they've resolved it means that there's clearly desire for more Red Dwarf to be.
I've got a
be
memory
made.
of there being a Red Dwarf role-playing game, but
Was
I don't know if I've dreamt it. I will look that up before next time, because if there is, I will sell quite a lot of my current role-playing game stuff, save up the money and buy it. And if not, I shall use the new Chaosium basic role-playing game to create my own, because that system will work.
The thing I'd worry about with a with the Red Dwarf role playing game, or to be honest, any role playing game based on a comedy, is that I'm not funny, or at least I'm not funny when I'm trying to be funny.
Ah, okay, I get.
And
that.
I don't know.
I don't agree, but I get that.
What, you don't agree that I'm not funny?
No, I don't. No, hang on. There's too many negatives in that. I believe you are funny, even when you are trying to be funny.
Oh,
is the
okay.
statement I'm going with.
Okay. Well,
Right,
thanks very much.
Okay, so
before we do Spot the Doctor Who actor, do we have anything else to say about these 2 episodes?
no.
Okay.
No, I've got my own Red Dwarf stories, which I will tell.
Well,
next
yeah,
time.
I'm looking forward to kind of hearing more about your background with Red Dwarf next week. And I think there are other things that we can say about Red Dwarf in general that I'd love to kind of delve into if we've got time next time.
Oh, I think we will. Right.
So did you in either episode? Did you spot any Doctor Who actors?
Not Doctor
Because
Who,
I
but
didn't.
I did spot one actor without looking that I recognised immediately.
Okay.
And I was quite happy, but not out of Doctor Who.
Okay, go ahead with that, and then we'll do the Doctor
It's
Who
the
stuff.
woman in Samsara.
Yeah.
The main doctor. She is the woman who owns the coffee shop in the 2nd series of Good Omens.
I haven't seen the second series of Good Omens.
Well, she is the woman who owns the coffee shop, and I went, there she is.
Yes, and in 6 episodes.
And I was quite smug.
But she is also the one Doctor Who.
Is
link.
she? Oh, right. Okay.
Yes.
I missed that.
She was a character called Elsie in Deep Breath, Peter Capaldi's debut. And no, I don't remember her either.
She wasn't inside the dinosaur costume or something.
I have no idea. I'm
Okay.
assuming it's quite a small part. She's also apparently in Doctor Who Redacted, which is the podcast that they
now I
brought
listened
out,
to
and
the
I have
first
not
episode
listened to any
that,
of it.
and it was quite good. And
Okay.
That first episode was very. It's a podcast, but it definitely was going somewhere, and I was quite captivated by it. And I think I've got it downloaded on my phone somewhere. It's just, the way that real life comes along and gets in your way.
Yes, I've not really heard much about it. Also, in related sci-fi comedy news, she was the computer voice in Hyperdrive.
Hyperdrive.
It's her first credited role. Maggie Service is the name of the character. So.
Right. So Hyperdrive predates this story.
What? Yes. Because this was Red Dwarf Series 11 was 2016.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Red Dwarf coming back was after Hyperdrive.
This episode, this story does feel a lot more 5 or 6, Red Dwarf 5 or 6, rather than like Red Dwarf 9 or 11 or whatever it is.
Well, this was the thing. Like Series 10 was a sort of, I feel, was like a greatest hits compilation in that they hit various kind of points from kind of previous. And I think they continued that with 11 and 12 in that there were various bits that remind you of earlier series. Musically, there's a lot of music cues from Series 1 and 2 that crop up in the later series.
Yeah.
But then it feels
See,
more like...
that's one of the things
3, 4,
I
5,
didn't like
6.
about Season 3. Series 1 and Series 2 has got the big slow music
Oh,
introduction, the orchestral thing, which is brilliant. Finishes with the great song.
Yeah.
But
do you know
Series
on the
3,
subtitles...
straight into song, yeah, what?
So my wife likes to watch things with subtitles. It helps her kind of concentrate. So we turn the subtitles on, watching it on the DVD, and the DVD subtitles, when the theme tune starts, in brackets says 2001 style music opening. That's what the subtitles actually tell you.
Right.
So if you're deaf, then you don't know what 2001 sounds like.
But
either.
you might. Now I've had this discussion with somebody else. They might have become deaf later on in life, so they'll remember what that's like.
Yes. Or you might be kind of partially kind of hearing, and so
that's
that. So you have an idea of what. Yes. It's only if you're completely deaf that you don't know what that sounds like.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So Red Dwarf,
and obviously there are a lot. Sorry, let's just quickly.
Yeah.
We'll come across this next time because there's definitely one Doctor Who actor I know in one of your episodes.
I've got it written down.
Lots of Doctor Who people have been in Red Dwarf over the years. We just happen to have picked episodes where they are not well represented.
Yes.
But there's lots and lots of crossover. Obviously, none of the main cast of Red Dwarf have ever been in Doctor Who. Sadly, I mean, I feel that you could easily kind of get most of them into a Doctor Who role.
They've not even done a. I'm trying to think if they've done Big Finish, but
I don't know.
Place it.
I mean, obviously, Chris Barry is a fantastic voice actor.
Yes.
You can see Chris Barry very easily having turned up in a Big Finish, but I don't think he has. I don't know.
No, not at all.
We'll probably get listeners writing in going, of course, this is
Of course,
this
he
Big
was
Finish
in this. He was
episode
in the
from
episode
10 years
live.
ago.
The Sylvester McCoy episode. How dare call yourself a Doctor Who fan? You must revoke your fandom card immediately, and so on.
But what I like is the fact that because Red Dwarf spans, like you say, the wilderness era, there are people who were in Doctor Who before they were in Red Dwarf, but then there were also people who were in Red Dwarf before they were in Doctor Who.
Right. We shall go through as many of those as we can.
I will try and find as many as I can, and we'll talk about it next time.
Right, and I will think about these things so that I can at least bring something to the table.
Yes.
Because I am a tiny bit of a Red Dwarf fan.
So remind our listeners, Michael, what are your 2 picks?
My
for
2
next time?
are Waiting for God, which anyone who knows me knows that's a fairly obvious one for me to have chosen, and the one that I saw live, which was Justice.
Okay.
So I believe that's series 1.4 and 4.3.
Sounds about right. I look forward to rewatching those.
There's not that much of a gap between them.
No,
28
only a few years.
Yeah.
so that will be May's episode
Yes.
for your consideration. And then at the end of that episode, you are going to pick what we do for June.
I am, and I will reveal it then.
You will reveal it then, and I look forward to finding out what your next pick is going to be.
I'm torn between two things.
Well, you've got plenty of time to decide.
Yes. Well, I need to make sure that I can get the thing to you so you can watch it.
Oh, okay.
Or read it, or listen to it.
It's one that's less accessible, is it then? Okay, interesting.
I think so. I need to check because I don't think it's on iPlayer.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for sharing Red Dwarf with me this month. And we look forward to doing it all over again next month with Red Dwarf Part 2. So
Hooray!
I will say goodbye at this point and leave the final word as ever to your good self.
Be seeing you.